So I'm going to give you just a kind of a brief breakdown for our class on the Maillard reaction. So you're going to have a link to both of these articles, but I want to kind of roll through it quickly and summarize it down on what's really important and kind of what I want and expect my students to know. So I am starting here on what I called the scientific article. So the Maillard reaction and caramelization in culinary, we're talking about browning. In science and chemistry, there are different types of browning that occur on food items. So as you scroll down through this article, one of the first things it talks about is enzymatic browning. So enzymatic browning is essentially where foods turn brown, kind of through oxidation. So bananas get brown spots, avocados, when you cut them and let them sit out, apples, when you cut them and let them sit out, they turn brown. So we're not talking about that type of browning. And by the way, most of you can blanch some things to make that stop, or like with the case of apples, a lot of times I'll just very lightly shake them around in a bowl with like a little orange juice squeeze or a little lemon juice, a little vinegar, a little acid, and just kind of shake them around, and that will stop that. And that's how your apple slices don't turn so brown on a fruit tray. Non-enzymatic browning is the way that heat forces foods to turn brown. So this causes these chemical reactions, and essentially these chemical reactions develop new chemical compounds, and these are what make things smell really good and what makes things taste really good. So this lesson is called The Science of Deliciousness, and it's all about the Maillard and caramelization, and then how to make that happen. And so as we're getting into talking about moist and dry methods, it's really going to come into play to make sure that students have an understanding of these chemical processes. Now, I am not going to ask you to like break down the chemical components or compounds or really go into a chemistry side of it, but just that understanding of the definition, what they are, and then how we create them and what foods create them. That's ultimately for culinary what I want my students to kind of know and understand. So proteins versus carbohydrates. So carbohydrates undergo more of the caramelization from earlier in this lesson, and then the Maillard is more on the proteins and the amino acids. And so if you read through the article here, it kind of breaks that down for you, and it breaks some food items down. And then one of the other things it talks about is patting your meat dry and controlling that moisture, and then what to do with braising. So I'm not going to read that article to you. I am going to flip over. So there's a second article specifically kind of called the Maillard reaction in culinary. So I have titled these, one is scientific and one is more culinary related, specific, and it outlines pretty much the same thing that I just covered. What is it? What does it do? Practically speaking, the long story short, and when you get down here and it starts talking about heat and moisture and time, and this as a culinarian is really where you want to kind of focus your energy. Like, okay, so now we know what it is. How do we do it? How do we accomplish it? So most food items have some amount of moisture in there. We've already learned from our science lesson that when you apply heat to food, moisture is going to escape. And ultimately, making sure that you are cooking at high enough temperatures so that that water will evaporate so that you maintain that dry cooking method. Moist cooking, if you read down through here, so looking at this article here, and it talks about the temperature at which this browning can occur. And the temperature range is high. We fry, we deep fry, we pan sear, we grill, we roast. We go at these high temperatures, and water is really only ever going to reach about 212 degrees. And so when you get to the boiling point, it turns to steam, and that's it. So you can boil something all day, but you're not going to develop that flavor. And there's a video that you're going to watch that really kind of shows that and demonstrates that something that is boiled, meat that is boiled, is not going to have that same texture, and it's not going to have that same flavor base as one that has been browned or seared. So when it comes to cooking, You really want, like I said, that time plus temperature. So the whole crux of this unit is time and temperature, and understanding moist versus dry cooking and maintaining those temperature ranges, making sure that you're cooking at that right temperature. And when it comes to browning, when it comes to the Maillard or it comes to caramelization, if your temperature is too low or there is any moisture really in your pan, you are not achieving that temperature to get that browning to happen. And essentially, whether you put water in your pan or not, you have water now. So I'm going to be demonstrating, and I do in my class. We look a lot at browning meat and looking at conduction and convection cooking methods, that direct versus indirect heat, how that makes a difference. And this is where certain things come into play, like whether or not you use a lid in your pan. That you're going to go from dry to moist cooking when we cover dry cooking methods just by putting a lid on there, because now there's no water escaping your pan. You're also going to go from a dry cooking method to a moist cooking method if you don't have enough heat in your pan to get the water out of the pan that cooks out of the food. Now the food is boiling in its own juices instead of getting that really nice sear. So the last part of today's lesson on browning is on searing and how to make that happen. So there's a demonstration video that you'll kind of do, but I wanted to kind of walk you through these two articles here. It's really good information for you to read. But really just kind of understanding what is important for you in culinary to know and understand about the Maillard reaction. What is it, and how do we accomplish it? And then you can read through this. The article's great. I really like the spruce eats, and then you can kind of get some more understanding.